Good morning, everyone. We're just going to give it a minute to make sure all the members get into the meeting. We'll be starting in a moment. BA, could you let me know when everyone's in?
Everyone's in.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Good morning, everyone, and actually good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. I'm excited to welcome everyone to our second board meeting of the 2022-2023 Board of Directors. And this is coming on the heels of our first meeting at the convention in Las Vegas, our first in-person conference since we last saw each other in San Antonio in 2019 before the pandemic. There were so many amazing highlights from Vegas, but I just want to point out two of my favorite moments. One was the time I was able to spend with our local NAHJ officers at the chapter meeting, and seeing such talented, dedicated leaders coming up the pipeline, leaders who will hopefully one day be serving on the national board. If that's what our future holds, we're in very, very good hands. The second highlight for me was our membership meeting, 2 very jam-packed hours where we presented our newly approved strategic plan and took questions, heard feedback, and listened to your thoughts on this important step we're taking. I just want to thank Nora Lopez, who will be joining us later, and every single board member who poured their time and energy into that plan, but especially our members who are the reason we're doing all of this. There's just no substitute for seeing each other in person, feeling that positive energy and excitement, and knowing that we're stronger because we're headed in the same direction. So thank you so much for getting us there. I think this is one case where what happened in Vegas is definitely not going to stay in Vegas. So we're carrying those positive vibes forward. And one of the reasons we're meeting so soon after our first meeting is because we've been examining our existing committees, our task forces, and looking to form new advisory committees to engage members, because our next step is, as a board, to begin tackling the goals and priorities in that plan. So in addition to walking through those committees today and what they'll be working on, we'll be taking a vote so we can move forward on that. And the second reason is our audit was finalized after the conference. So while normally we would have met in October for our fall quarterly meeting, we're adjusting the schedule to meet sooner to address both the committees and the audit in a timely manner. And we'll still have our fall board meeting, but in early November. Lastly, although our new board is only a month old, it's been a busy month for the rapid response team. So I just want to take a moment to thank the entire team, but highlight one member in particular, actually one of our new rapid response team members, otherwise known as Las Chingonas, as we like to call ourselves. And that's David Cordero Mercado, who joins our previously lone Chingon, Julio Cesar Chavez. David immediately jumped into action to craft a statement that we issued in response to the alarming attacks by police on journalists who were covering protests in Puerto Rico last month. And as we've seen over the last several years, these attacks on journalists across the country have become increasingly common, including here in California, where I'm based. So gracias, David, por todo tu ayuda. We're so happy to have you as part of the team. David is actually in the Dominican Republic right now, where NAHJ is providing training for our colleagues and emerging journalists. Taking NAHJ training into the Dominican Republic is a historic moment for us, and we're proud to take this step. Throughout the Americas, this really strengthens and underscores the bonds between us as Latino journalists. The rapid response team issued 2 other statements, one in conjunction with AAJ and NABJ, calling on the New York Times to address significant racial disparities in the Times's performance evaluation system. It's given significantly lower ratings to employees of color. So the 3 presidents met with the Times newsroom executives this week, and we had a productive discussion, and we will be staying in contact to ensure that the concerns that we've raised are addressed. Lastly, we spoke up in defense of one of our very own board members, newly elected academic officer Adriana Chavira, who for months has resisted attempts by Daniel Pearl Magnet High School's principal to censor her students on the school paper where she serves as the advisor. We're so proud of Adriana for standing up in defense of her students' rights to exercise their freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and we'll continue to support her as she appeals the 3-day suspension. Lastly, a few key dates that I want to remind our members about. We're accepting applications for the 2022 NAHJ Awards through September 16th, so that deadline's coming up. The awards are going to be presented on Sunday, October 30th from Washington, D.C., and I encourage newsrooms of all sizes, journalists of all career levels to submit their work so that we can honor the wealth of talent across our membership. And lastly, we're already preparing for our next convention in Miami, which will be held from July 12th through the 15th, and registration is officially open on our website. So I'm going to hand it over to our secretary, Blanca Rios, who's going to do the roll call.
Good morning. Okay, so we're going to start with Yvette Cabrera,
I'm here.
Valeria Fernandez,
Here.
Julio Cesar Chavez.
Here.
Okay. Yeah, okay, sorry for that. McNally Torres,
Aquí.
Marilyn Garatex. Marilyn. Oh, she's on mute, but I see her.
Yeah, she's-
Melissa Makaya,
I'm here.
Here.
Valerie Mia Juarez,
Here.
Luis Joel,
Presente.
Adriana Chavira.
Here. Here.
David Cordero Mercado.
Presente.
Blanca Rios, I'm here, and I'm looking for Nanette Sosa. Did she make it on? Okay, Brenda Elizondo
Here.
and Johnny. Are you on? Johnny Cordova?
Johnny is
Coming on later, I think, right?
yeah,
Mom,
he's on a little later.
Okay,
Yes.
and then Alwyn Lopez, Jamie Stockwell, and Christy Fajardo are not on the call that I know of. But we do make quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, and then I just want to also make sure we announce our guests. David Peña, BA, Yaneth, I believe is on, Leslie Ann, and Yunuen, and then later on Nora. So
Actually, David, Yaneth is not on, right? She's at the training in the Dominican Republic. Is that right? I don't.
I think so.
Yes, she's right now she's inside on the training room.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, we have the approval of the board minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review that? And are there any questions or corrections?
Yes, actually in the upcoming meeting section, it says Yvette chaired and discussed upcoming meetings and important dates. The next board meeting scheduled for September 17, it will be virtual. I
right.
don't know if because we met today, we should fix it or maybe write like a short note that we changed that date so that our membership can be clear about it.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be changed outright because that is what was said in the meeting, but it should have an additional note saying like
Yeah,
this was later
definitely.
changed.
maybe an addendum.
Addendum.
Yeah.
At the bottom, yes. I'll
Yeah.
Addendum and then data today that, you know,
Okay. I'll do that right now.
thank you.
Any other corrections, additions, addendums? Okay, I'm gonna give Blanca a second. Blanca, let me know when you're done.
Done. Okay, thanks. And everybody has access. So.
Okay, great. All right, well, if there's not anything else, I'm gonna call for a motion to, hold on one second. Yes, yeah, I'm gonna call for a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from our last board meeting.
Second.
Who was that seconded?
Now you can have it.
Nelly?
McNally? Okay, McNally.
Somebody else, but I don't know who that was. Maybe that other person had like a second ahead of me.
All right.
I'll go with McNally.
Okay, we'll go with McNally. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the minutes are approved and we will be putting those up on the website. Next up, I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director, David Peña, for an update of the association.
Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. Happy to be on this call. Good morning. We had, I'll start off with the convention that we recently had in Las Vegas. It was a very successful convention. We got lots of feedback and some very, very valuable feedback as we head into next year's convention. We have not received the final invoice from the hotel. It does take 30 days. So we're hoping that this coming week we receive our final invoice. Subsequently, we'll also receive an invoice from NAHJ for the joint expenses. So what I can report today is that jointly our preliminary numbers was that we did exceed 4,600 attendees. Of those, we've audited our numbers and registrations, and so we were at 1,170 attendees. That includes speakers, presenters that are members of our association. So that is a great number, but it's also sort of the baseline of what we're using to plan next year's convention, which we've already begun to plan the Miami convention. Not to sort of scare you all, but we are 9.5 months away from our next convention. Time flies. So we've already kind of began to just plan everything. The dates are, the key dates for the convention are July 12th through the 15th next year in Miami at the Intercontinental Hotel in downtown Miami. So mark your calendars. Please register early. Please have your fellow journalists register early also, because since this contract was signed pre-pandemic and we've grown since then, we will have probably to cap our attendee number at around 1,100. So we will probably have to close registration early. So please encourage individuals to register early. We also have to cap, or we are capped at 427 rooms at our host hotel. So that means also that there will have to be some overflow hotels that we are working at. But if individuals want to stay at the host hotel, then they need to reserve their rooms sooner than later. The board of directors, your rooms are taken care of by national office, so you don't have to worry about your rooms. But anybody else attending, if they want to stay at the host hotel, they need to book their room probably before the end of the year, because we only have 427 rooms available. And we're probably we reserve probably about 70 of those just for the board, staff, scholarship recipients, Latino reporters, students, and mentors. So those rooms are probably going to be reduced. So from 427, we take 60 to 70. So there's only 300 some rooms available at the host hotel. Any questions on either of the conventions?
Yes. And also we have a question from one of the members who's asking, Cindy is asking if they need a code to get the discounted rate.
We will be issuing the code for the chapter leaders and for the board fairly quickly. Yaneth was out and then she's now in the Dominican Republic. So we will get that to you all within the next 2 weeks so that chapter leaders and the board can register for the convention. Registration is already open on our website. We are relaunching our website in the next couple of weeks. So you'll see also some changes there. So definitely keep that in mind and be aware of. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
David, it's Nanette here. I do just have a quick question regarding the website relaunch. Does that mean we need to re-register into that website, or will we automatically carry over into this new website?
So registration is separate. That's through our internal membership system, MemberClicks. So the website transition will not impact member clicks.
McNally, you had a question?
No, I wanted to say that the hotel is a Continental. We had conventions there before. Is in a great location downtown Miami. So, you know, we hope to see you guys here. We can't wait to see you guys next year, and we're gonna have a kick-ass conference. Can I say kick-ass? I say kick-ass. We're gonna have a kick-ass conference here in Miami. So, do you guys have any questions or anything? You know, please, you know, shoot me an email. So because I have attended a lot of conferences in that hotel, and it's a good venue.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. As Yvette mentioned at the beginning during her welcome remarks, we do have right now open the submissions for the NAHJ Awards. So again, as journalists or individuals within the media communications, if you know of individuals that have submissions, please do so as soon as possible. The NAHJ Awards will be taking place virtually October 30th. So keep that date in mind. Also, we'll be sending some additional information. We are also happy to announce that next year's NAHJ Awards in 2023 will take place in Los Angeles the first week of November. So that way next year we'll have the convention on the East Coast and the NAHJ Awards on the West Coast. So definitely an opportunity to engage with members on both coasts and across the country. So definitely an opportunity there. Also, we'll be launching in February 2 regional summits. These are sort of one-day conferences for our students. The first one will be February 11th at Columbia University. And the second one would be February 25th at USC in Los Angeles. So these are sort of us taking our programming out to our students, because we do have about 800 and some students, and we only had about 100 and some students that attended the convention. So we want to engage with our members where they're at and give them the opportunity to engage with our partners, with our professional members at the local level. So keep those 2 dates. It is free to student members, and we'll be opening registration in October for both of those. We're already working with the both the departments at USC and Columbia for these 2 summits for our students. On the fundraising side, we've collected 75% of our convention sponsorship. So we're just in the final sort of collections of those. So we get all our money in, and we'll be reaching out to our partners about all the 2023 events this coming month in order to get in front of them before their October and end of year budget cycle. So that's part of what we're being proactive and really being engaging with our partners so that we are on their budgets as one of the events that they prefer to, or multiple events for 2023. On our membership side, we have 4,183 members. Of those, 3,304 are professional and 879 are student members. Currently, we're taking a deep dive into our membership data. We want to really understand our membership and who's paying, who's not, who's comped, as we begin to do our budget for the next year, so that we can set our outlook and projections to be accurately reflecting of our membership and where our revenue is coming from. We are heading into our own internal budget planning this month, so that in October we are able to, with our new national financial officer and our new president, work on a budget for 2023 so that the board can take a look at it and approve it in November. So we are already, as they say, knee deep in budget and numbers. Scholarships, we will be making an end of year appeal. If you, your family, or your employer is looking for a tax deduction, please consider donating to our scholarship fund before the end of the year. On our website, as we indicated, we're transitioning. We have taken into account a lot of the input that we've had on our website. We will be sharing some of the draft pages and mock-ups for some of the board members that have provided input in the coming days. So keep an eye out for that. And then we'll be talking a little later about our audit and our financials. And I do want to also thank the board and our staff. We recently had Candid, which is a nonprofit that monitors nonprofits and evaluates. We received the Platinum Seal for transparency. And that takes into account that we have open meetings, that we have our governance documents on our website, our 990s, our audits, our meeting minutes, and our policies. So that is actually, they do have a gold level, a silver level, and we've received a platinum level. So definitely, huge thank you to our previous board and our current board for support and engaging, and our staff are working hard towards getting that transparency seal. So thank you.
Thanks, David. And that includes the committee vote that we take today and the decisions that we make around there. We're looking to post that also on our website on the page that includes the board. We currently have the rapid response team information listed there, but we're going to do that for all the committees, the advisory committees, the task forces, so that the members know who they can engage with, whether it's the chair of a committee, or for example, if they want to participate in an advisory committee, we're going to post that as well. Next up, we have the update on the bylaws, and that's Arelis and David as well, right?
Hey everyone, so I apologize. I'm working remotely from a family member's house, so please forgive me. But where we are in the bylaws, so we have had a nonprofit attorney sort of review our bylaws and look at the mechanism by which we could attempt a revision, or at least looking at some of the things that are not working that could be moved over to an operational manual, for example. And so we have a spreadsheet that we're going to be filling out and reviewing along with members of the new constituted bylaws committee, which at this point includes several board members. And we're making a push this week, if that's right, BA, to recruit folks across the membership. We have a Google form that we'll be sending out, as well as a special announcement inviting people to participate in the bylaws committee. And we should start meeting here at least in the next month. And what we'll be doing is, again, going over sort of the spreadsheet of our bylaws, getting deeply into them. The goal is to have some kind of presentation for the board to vote by its December 2nd and 3rd retreat. David, am I missing anything?
No, that's correct. Just wanted to provide a little more context. This is not a process that we take lightly. This is a process that, through some of the challenges, both as an organization and some of the components of our bylaws that are 38 years old, we want to streamline some of those items. We want to move per the attorney recommendations. We're going to take a look at some of the areas that could be moved to an operations guide, an elections guide. And we want input from all our chapters, our members, our board, as we evaluate the bylaws and make recommendations to the board of directors, and then subsequently present to the full membership, and eventually have a special meeting to vote on updating our bylaws. So this is really not just a one item that we want to change. This is something that we're taking a look at our bylaws and how can we bring them up to date, streamline them, and find solutions for some issues and challenges that have sort of come up or have been challenges throughout the organization's history. So just remain engaged, provide us input, and we look forward to providing a document that you can take a look at towards the end of the year.
And just to use a metaphor, because I love metaphors, even if they don't work, the way that I'm presenting it to members is to think of our bylaws as a vintage Chevy, if you will. The frame is great, but to make the car run, it needs more than a paint job. So it needs new upholstery, the brakes are shot, the engine needs replacing. So now's your choice, your chance to join us in the shop and bring your tools. So that's the invitation that we have to the membership to come help be part of this enterprise. Thank you very much, Yvette.
Thanks, Arelis. Yes, this is definitely high on my agenda, and I know it's high on the agenda of a lot of board members, because there are things that we want to do but are restricted from doing, that because the bylaws are so outdated, it's often stopped us from making progress. So So hopefully, once we take this step, we can address some of those issues. But in the meantime, we do work within the bylaws, and there are things that do work, like the existence and the ability to create advisory committees, which takes us onto our next item on the agenda, which is looking at the committees, creating new advisory committees, also examining the task forces that we do have. And that's what we've been doing this past month. I've been talking to the board members individually to ask, what are their strengths, what are the places where they can serve us best. But the committees, the restriction with the committees is that it can only be board members. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and that we would prefer to have input from our members on, and thus the advisory committees, which can include members as well. So I'm gonna, we have a list. Some of these are committees that existed, have existed for years, or existed through the work of the previous board. And one of those includes, we created a strategic planning committee to create the plan, but we didn't want to drop it. I did not want to drop it because I want to make sure that we implement the plan. So we've altered it somewhat to call it the Strategic Planning Implementation Committee. I'm stepping down as chair. I asked Melissa Macaya to step up as chair because she served on the board. She also helped run some of the meetings while I was out of the country. The members include Magnelli Torres, Christy Fajardo, Melissa, as I said, David Cordero Mercado, and myself as a member. We can always add more members. Again, this is board members, but I wanted to give Melissa a chance just to, if you have anything that you want to add as to what the committee would do, you feel free to do that. And if not, I can add a few more comments.
Yeah, I think that now we're looking ahead to, I think, what is also very exciting. One of the big things that we're looking at when we presented during the convention itself, the conference, is how we want to educate our members about the work that we did in the last year, and doing that in a bilingual way, right, in both English and Spanish. So I think that's going to be a big part of what we do. And then tackling, as for those of you who have read the plan, and I hope you have if you're on this call, there's a lot that we're looking to tackle. So really looking to prioritize what we want to do first, and kind of put a timeline to that all, and then making sure that we're keeping our members in sync, communicated every step along the way, because this plan is really for you all, and we want your participation. We want you to be excited about it. So I think after we, oh, and thank you, BA dropped the link in there. So please take a look at it. I think once we wrap up our meeting today and look into the fall and the spring, we will, as a committee, start looking at what do we want to prioritize? How can we be of service to help guide this process? And then what are the next steps and the best way to communicate this to members?
Great. Yes, and one of the things, the staff has been busy with the conference, but they had started working on an implementation plan, because the question always is resources and funding to support the work that we want to do. And so David Peña is working on that with the staff to come up with year 1, year 2, 3, 4, and 5, and how much money we're going to need for what goals and priorities we have. But in the meantime, we can, as a board, work on the objectives that we can do without any money, that involve addressing some of those goals that don't require any resources. So that's what we're doing in the meantime. So any questions from the board on that committee? And someone let me know if there's any questions in the chat box. All right. The next committee is a rapid response team, which we already approved at the last board meeting, because as everyone knows, issues come up that we need to respond to immediately. That team has been in place also for years. And so the team includes Nora Lopez as the chair. And she is as our former president, our ex officio board member. And the members include Christy Fajardo, myself, Blanca Rios, Julio Cesar Chavez. It did include Jennifer Marcial Ocasio, but I have an announcement that I'll be sharing at the end. Involving Jennifer, she's having to step down. And it also includes Johnny Cordova and then Arelis Hernandez as an advisor, and David Cordero Mercado as a member, as I had mentioned before. Does anyone have any questions about that from the board? Okay. The next one is a new committee, which we're calling the Advocacy Committee. As the members know, in the strategic plan, we are making advocacy a priority based on what our members have asked us to do. So in order to get an understanding of what are the issues that our chapter members would like us to advocate on, I'm creating this committee to include all of our regional representatives, and our an advisory committee to include our chapter presidents, that will be chaired by one of our regional representatives. And the idea is, after we vote on this, to set up virtual meetings with all of our regional reps and our chapter leaders. And we're going to try to figure out how we're going to do this, but to meet with all of them to figure out what are the issues that you want us to advocate on, and how should we prioritize those? Because I would like for this group to come up with a plan and maybe top 3 priorities that we can tackle this year so that we can work together. Oftentimes, we advocate based on members who reach out to us. I want to make it more democratic, and I want us to be all on the same train going in the same direction in terms of overlap, because some of the issues that we're dealing with, whether it's pay equity or, like I spoke about earlier, these attacks on the press, they're happening in states across the country. How can we come together to deliver strong messaging, but also come up with a plan that sort of moves the needle forward? Because we can speak out on these issues by issuing statements, but oftentimes the needle is moved by having conversations with, for instance, a newsroom manager. And sometimes our chapters, feel that it's difficult to have those conversations when they work within those newsrooms. And that's where the board can come in. That's where our regional reps can come in. That's where other chapter leaders can come in, sort of as a show of force on these issues. So that is a step that comes directly from the strategic plan. And let's see, does anyone have any questions on that? Okay. The next one is the bylaws revision task force. Areli, can you talk about that one?
Yeah, it's basically not different from what I previously discussed in terms of the bylaws. It's there should be an invitation going out to the membership this week, inviting folks to sign up if they're interested. And there's a Google form attached that asks about like how much time you can dedicate, for example, to this committee, as well as your strengths and what skills you think you bring to the committee. There are a couple of, or several board members who've already signed up, but we really need members to be a part of this process. We're basically looking at the constitution of NAHJ. So we would love your participation and feedback, and look for that email.
Great. And I'm naming off the board members who have raised their hands to serve on these or chair these, so that our members know who to turn to. So for that one, we've got as co-chairs Arelis, and then Julio Cesar Chavez, and as members Blanca Rios, Luis Joel Mendez Gonzalez, McNally Torres, and Marilyn Garate. Okay, the next one is the board policies committee, which is also super important. It's one of those like it's not very sexy to talk about policies, but they're so important in terms of continuity to help as we transition from our leaders, our boards, and we want to have those in place to help every future board. Arelis, can you also talk about that one? Because you're the chair of that one.
Yeah, to be clear, the work of the bylaws committee and the operations manual to some degree is done in tandem. Because some of the things that might get amended in the bylaws that are extraneous to the actual bylaws will probably end up in the operations manual and moved over to that. So what I haven't figured out whether we just either combine the two or make them two separate parts of the same process. But members who are part of bylaws, I would invite you to also participate in the operations manual. Basically, I have now is a table of contents, all the things that we want to address, and then we'll divide up the work for the actual writing. So that's where we are right now.
Great. Any questions on that one from the board? Okay.
Yvette, I just want to be clear on that. So the
Yeah.
bylaws revision task force is currently, for right now, separate from the, what did we just look at?
Board
The-
policies?
The
Yes.
initial bylaws review process, right? Currently, it's two separate, and that could maybe change down the line, but for right now.
Oh,
right?
well, actually, so Arelis has been looking into the bylaws update by talking to an attorney, working with David to prepare for the task force. So it's just prep work that she's been doing to get us to the point where we can look at this as a task force. But the task force is formalizing it as a board so that we can then invite our members to be part of the process. Very similar to what we did two boards ago, where we had essentially a bylaws group working on, comprised of members examining our bylaws, and which led to the amendments that we had hoped to pass, but didn't, because we didn't get enough votes. But this time around, we know what's required, and we're going to make a big push. So once we have whatever bylaws, revisions, amendments, etc., we have ready, we're going to do a big push to make sure that the membership knows about it, so we get enough votes. But yes, it is two separate things, but one's not a committee. One's at least doing the prep work for the task force.
Thank you.
Can I say something about that, Yvette, about what happened the last time? It wasn't as much that we didn't get enough votes. It's just the bylaws really didn't prevent us to pass this, because we needed like so many votes, but there was a huge uproar. The voter turnout was huge. And a lot of the things that we proposed, especially on transparency, people were really, really supporting these things, which are now, we did it anyway. We're posting everything on the website so everybody can see it. We're trying to be as transparent as we can. So, and to me, that the fact that so many people voted and the engagement that we had, because I got involved, Arelis got involved, a lot of us got involved because of it, there's a lot.
Yes, and like McNally said, the bylaws have rules as to how many people need to vote in order for us to pass that, and we didn't meet the threshold is the problem, which is another reason to update the bylaws. So anyways, okay, all right. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question for Arelis. Do you have a specific timeline on when you maybe tienes un calendario de trabajo para el bylaws committee que puedas compartir a los miembros?
Calendario de actividades, no lo tengo. I just know that the goal is December 2nd to the 3rd to make if not a complete, but a near complete presentation to the board. And so, which is why on the Google form, I'm asking people how much time they can devote to the committee. So that way we can build out a calendar. And honestly, like, this is going to be hard work. If you remember the first time around, it was 9 months that we spent on the bylaws, and we prioritized 3. And so we're going to have to be really nimble. And I need to know first what assets I have to be able to figure out like how we can delegate the work and figure out how to do things quickly.
I suggest, just like when I work on projects with my reporters, we should have some target mini deadlines and just have a schedule, because that's the only way that you're going to hit this thing. And even, it doesn't have to be written in stone, just to have some, like approximate. We need to have something.
Also, it would be great to get members involved who have gone through this process for other organizations who have some sort of expertise in that. And I think that was what was so great about the previous group that tackled the bylaws, is that we had some, former presidents, and so that all, that type of expertise. We're looking for a mix of expertise in the people that get involved. All right.
I just want to say one thing. NABJ recently did a review of its own constitution, and they redid their constitution from top to bottom. So they may have some advice for us about how to handle this, because it is overwhelming, and I think it just gets to a point where you're sort of like lost in the sea of bylaws and board policies and everything else. So they
Yes.
might have some advice about how to tackle, because they revised their whole constitution.
That's a great suggestion. I think Arelis is on the phone. I'll mention it to her later. Thank you, Marilyn. All right, anything else on the board policies? Okay. The next committee we're looking to create is an ad hoc committee for the board. This is what we're calling an oversight ad hoc committee. And right now it has 2 members, Magnelli Torres and Blanca Rios. This we're looking to create, it's meant to, when an issue comes up, and it could be, and I'm just giving some examples, member conduct, board member misconduct, it could be any of array of issues that require investigating or oversight, and a plan to respond to it. We don't want to be caught off guard. And so this is one of the things that we need to flesh out, what exactly this committee would need to do. And that's something that, policies will also tackle, but we didn't want to be unprepared in case something does come up. And so we're creating this committee to have the committee in place so that they can start thinking about these issues, and also working with the policies committee to tackle any issue that might come up. Magnelli, did you want to add anything else to that?
Yes, what I want to add, because we are not experts in HR people, I am going to tackle and trying to find somebody who can help us, an expert on HR legal issues, because I don't want to be in a situation like a couple of boards ago, where we are pretending to be something that we're not, and with that will expose us legally, and we don't want to be in a situation like that. So that's something that I'm going to be tackling, trying to find somebody that can donate their time to us and work on this stuff.
Yep.
I have a cousin who's a HR specialist, and so I have a cousin who's an HR specialist.
Oh, that's great.
So I can try to tap him to volunteer to help us out.
Okay, great.
Marilyn, does he work for a company, or is he like?
He's a HR specialist with Barry University in Florida,
Okay.
in Miami. And he's done work for American Bankers Insurance Company as well. So both a corporate and a university he's worked for. He's a young guy, so I think he'd be willing to help us out a little bit with some stuff. And he's really good. And he has his master's and everything. So.
Okay.
Great. Okay. The next committee is the executive board and financial audit committee, which is all in one, which was approved at the initial board meeting that we have, again, for the same reasons, because we needed to be activated to respond to any issues, including responding to the audit when it was delivered after the conference. So that's already been approved, but I just wanted to let you know that that's in place, and that includes all of the executive board members, which is myself, Arelis, Julio Cesar Chavez, Magnelli Torres, Blanca Rios, and Marilyn Garate. So that one does not need to be approved today because we've already approved it. All right. Hold on one second. Did anyone have any questions about that one before I move on to the next item? All right. The next committee is Investment Advisory Committee, which is going to be chaired by our financial officer, Marilyn Garate. Marilyn, did you want to say anything about this? I mean, we're essentially looking for experts in this area to serve on this committee, but if you'd like to say anything, please feel free.
Sure. Yes, we'd like to get people who have some experience with investments in particular. My plan is to invite Valeria Fernandez and Patty Martel to join us in the committee. But if anybody else has any other suggestions, anybody else who might know somebody who's up on investments and can help us out with investments and even fundraising as well, you know, anything to help us make money is probably the way to look at it. So anybody who can help us with that kind of stuff, any of our members, stuff like that, that's that I think that would be a way to go. I don't want to make it too big because then it gets kind of unwieldy, but I'm hoping that the committee will be able to put out a call to all members for ideas, you know, and stuff like that. But the investment's a big deal for us. You know, sometimes we need help with that. And so if anybody can help us with that, that would be great.
Yes, I mean, and that's one of the areas where I am, as a non-financial, non-business reporter, I really hope we have members that step up to help with this, who have that expertise. So like I mentioned, we're going to be posting these on the board webpage, and we'll be putting contact numbers for the chairs. So Marilyn would be the person to contact for that one. All right. Next up, we have the elections committee, which I wanted to discuss further with the board, because there's two things we need to accomplish. We always have an elections committee made up of board members who help run and oversee the board elections. But Nora, who chaired this previous elections committee, had talked to me about questions around the guidelines, and these are essentially like operational questions, but also questions that we would need feedback from the members on, because we would like to update those. And so so I think really what we need here is both an advisory committee and the regular elections committee. So two things: elections committee to help run the next elections, and then the advisory committee to take a look at those guidelines, so that we can update those in between now and the next elections. So that advisory committee would also involve members. But I wanted to get the thoughts from the board on doing it that way. So it'd be two, not one committee.
It'd be like the elections committee and a NAHJ to some degree, like
Yes,
attached advisory. Okay.
an advisory committee, which would allow us to bring in the members to get their feedback on that. It's because they're guidelines, and we've always had existing guidelines, but they just, again, one of those things that are, always need to be examined to make sure that it's responsive and reflective of, how elections are currently run, look at best practices, et cetera. But if we do just the elections committee, that would mean just the board members. And it's Nora's preference to involve members in an advisory committee role as well.
I think that's the way to go. I mean, I'm in the elections task force at IRE, and we have been updating, it's like, it's like language evolves. The same thing with elections. I think a lot of things come up and things, get all outdated. You have to update them constantly. So
Right.
We have submitted a bunch of changes that the board approved, and these past elections over there were very smooth.
Any other thoughts? Thanks, McNally.
Hi, this is Johnny. How are you guys?
Hi, Johnny.
So really quick, yeah, I know that I was helping out in this last election committee, and we had some help from some of the members, and I just wanted to say that was very helpful, just to have some extra people helping out. So I think that that's also a great idea to incorporate them into the mix. The only thing would be maybe coming up with a calendar so that they don't act separately, but at some point they kind of intertwine and share that feedback back and forth. Because I know we were doing it kind of as we went along, so maybe now it can be planned.
Yes, and in fact, I would recommend that we, and I would recommend that we have Nora as the chair of both so that they are intertwined and aware of what they're doing. And she's available to do both.
Why don't we have a co-chair to sort of kind of help with the process with Nora too? Because
Yes.
you know, I know that she's chair of 3 groups right now. If you count those you know, the attaché, like Arelis described.
Yes.
You know, I think that there should be a co-chair in one of those.
Okay, let's do it.
And it should definitely be someone in an off year. Even if one of the regional representatives is planning to not run again, I don't think, like, I think it should just be someone in an off year entirely.
Yes, so
Sure.
this year it would have to be someone on either the executive board or academic, Spanish language rep, etc. Someone who was just elected. So we'll put that call out to the board, and if anyone's interested, let me know. And we can do the co-chair. Anything else?
Does the
on that?
co-chair have to be from the board?
For the committee, yes. And we
Yeah.
can make them co-chairs for both. So but because one is a regular committee, yes, they would have to be from the board.
Mhm.
For the advisory committee, I'll talk to Nora, but we could, that one could be a member. A regular member. Okay. All right. The next committee is an advisory committee. This is from our strategic plan. One of our goals is to create a Latina Leadership Academy. And the reason we want to create the advisory committee is because we know that we want to involve, again, members. I mean, we have so many amazing Latinas in leadership positions. And rather than wait till the last moment, we'd like to bring them in from the get-go. This is still sort of a dream of ours. We're still outlining the proposal. We're looking for funding for this. But in order to make the proposal as strong as possible, to possibly to work in conjunction with David as he goes out to seek funding for this, we would prefer to have a group in place to help the board tackle this. And so I've asked Blanca Rios to serve as chair. We already have Nora Lopez, who we started working on this under Nora Lopez's presidency. So it makes sense to have her involved as a member, of course. I myself as a member, and Melissa Macaya as a member. We can obviously add additional members, but those are some of the people who volunteered so far to participate in that. But that again would also involve members and recruiting people from our membership to be involved in that. Blanca, did you want to say anything about that? I know you're taking notes.
No, I'm good. But I'm excited to be a part of it, and if I definitely would love to have more people on board and get their ideas for it.
Okay,
We
great.
do, sorry, this is David. We do already have a 7-page concept paper for a 3-year academy. So I'll share that with the committee. That is actually what I'm pitching to the funders right now. So we're not starting from scratch completely on just sort of ideas. That was something Nora took a look at. But it was a outside consultant help us develop it, but it is a flushed out 3-year program where we're seeking $300,000. So I'll share that with the new committee.
Great. Thank you, David. Any other questions on that one? All right. The next two are the Hall of Fame 2022 committee, which we combine with the NAHJ Awards committee. Those processes, in addition, those processes for both the awards and the Hall of Fame, we also want to memorialize and take a look at, just like we're doing for other guidelines that we have, like for elections. In this case, I've asked Nanette Sosa and Johnny Cordova, who served on the Hall of Fame committee this past year, to co-chair this, to look at best practices for both of those. That one doesn't have any additional board members, but we're looking for people to participate in that process as well. Any questions on that one? Nanette or Johnny, did you want to share any of your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thank you for mentioning that. Again, I've done it just for the past 2 years, and I noticed that there's like a lot of inconsistencies. So yeah, it would be nice to kind of streamline the process and also have like certain objectives in place, just so that even after, if we're not here, somebody else could come in and say, okay, these are the parameters, these are the guidelines, and just streamline the process, because I know it tends to be objective, and it makes it really hard, if you don't have those guidelines. So yeah, we would appreciate anybody else who has any ideas maybe of how to accomplish this. And right now it's just Ninette and me, but we're open to any other suggestions and ideas, or anybody else who wants to join us.
Okay, great, thank you. The next committee is the NAHJ Miami 2023 conference. We always have co-chairs for that, and we're in the process of looking at who might serve as co-chairs. These will be members, but in addition to that, we have board members on this conference committee, and that is Magnelli Torres, David Cordero Mercado, Marilyn Garate. And so we're, like I mentioned earlier, planning is already underway on this. It's coming up around the corner, but this will be a board committee, and we'll post this as well. So if members want to provide feedback, offer to help, we're going to be looking for volunteers. So that committee is still has not met yet, because we need to approve this.
Can I add something on that, so you guys know? I was approached by the local chapters, which we are looking for. We have some spots that we don't have a president, we don't have secretary, we're looking for officers, but we got several people here in South Florida. We're really want to help, because we're here in Florida. So I'll be, they want to get involved, and the first thing is that they're looking to fill in these positions that are open right now in the South Florida chapter.
Oh, great.
And actually, that reminds me, when we were last in Miami, the South Florida chapter was like their own committee for, I can't remember how it worked, but they were a big part of the conference planning. I just don't recall exactly how it worked, but they were definitely a committee of their own.
That's good
Maybe
to know.
Maybe they'll remember.
Well, yeah, Pilar has been there for a long time, since I've been down here in 2005. So she's that institutional memory. But there was also got Suzette Lavoy and Christina and and Frenchie. So and obviously Marilyn too, because we're here all in Florida.
Yep, we got a good team down there. Okay. Next is the Academic Advisory Committee. This is Adriana Chavira's chairing this. In the past, our past academic rep, Jessica Retis, had various advisory groups that she worked with, and found that it worked well. So we wanted to make sure to have in place a place where members can work with Adriana on the issues that she's going to tackle. Some of them include working with Jessica Retis on some of the priorities that she had set in place and was working on. So Adriana, did you have anything that you wanted to add there?
No, yes, I am following up with Jessica. I met with her about 3 weeks ago, I believe, because she did have a couple of things that she still wanted to finish. So she's, still determined to finish what she started when she was on the committee. And one thing that I do want to kind of work on, and I already talked to Marilyn about this, for the Miami convention, we want to bring in some high school students from the Miami area, kind of like we haven't worked out the logistics, but something that is like a commuter type of workshop for them, whether, we bring them in for 1 day or 2 days, just to kind of, get them started on journalism at the high school level. So, we started reaching out already to some of the journalism advisors in Florida. And, the cheapest and easiest way is to do it, just focusing on Miami students. And as far as I know, usually Miami, it hasn't had too many strong journalism programs or involvement in like national journalism organizations at the high school level. So I think reaching out to them at, or bringing in local kids to the convention would be eye-opening for them. And so I'll be working on that. It shouldn't be too hard because I know the Florida journalism advisors I've spoken to are looking forward to this. The Journalism Education Association has a big push on diversity, or they're making a big push for diversity and increasing its diversity in terms of students who are involved as well as advisors. And so definitely this is something that I'm sure they can help us get students there, whether it's we get buses somehow. It's going to be hard because they are in summer vacation, but if we just have something short that's not going to take up too much of their summertime, we should be able to make something happen, and hopefully without using up, many funds or much funds at all.
Okay, great.
Let me just say one thing. FIU is standing by. They're ready to help us out in any way. That's Florida International University. Help us in any way that they can. So I'm hoping that they will pick up some of the tab. They may even assign somebody to help Adriana sort of work on the program. And they have a bunch of interns that they sort of hand out to people. And they are willing to give us an intern to try to, help with the convention and help with the program in particular. And they also run a summer journalism program for high school students. So they can help us reach out to people. So we've got 2 people there, Chuck Strauss and Mercedes Vignon, who are ready to help us in any way that we need. So I think that would be good. And it should help Adriana sort of, put the project together. And so, because she'll have a lot of things on her plate. And Adriana will be the perfect person, given everything she's going through, to give the kids a really good introduction into how to stand up for their rights.
Okay, thanks for that info. And I'll touch base, Marilyn. Thank you.
Something that I would like to mention about this high school journalism students is that we should tackle in the future adding a category for high school journalism students to give them some kind of membership, because our current bylaws doesn't let them be categorized as student members, because student members are defined as students that are full-time in a high school learning institution. So maybe we could tackle in the future creating a special membership for them, for high school students or for school students, because that's the way we can create a pipeline of future reporters early in their careers. We can identify those talents and help them develop. So that's something that we could tackle, even in the bylaws committee, with the help of Adriana, of course.
Yes.
I like that idea, but as a teacher of high school students, they don't like to pay for memberships. So just an FYI. So pretty much they don't, if they have like $20, they're going to spend it somewhere else instead of membership, even though they do love it. So that's just kind of a little heads up.
Okay.
Interesting.
Maybe we can get a lifetime members to sponsor a student or something like that.
I like that idea.
That's a good
ask
idea.
them to, sort of
I
sponsor.
would definitely do that.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, great. Okay. Next, we have a National Collegiate Council, similar to the advisory committees. We're just calling it this. Brenda and David, if you want to talk about that, essentially it would be comprised of the student chapter presidents, working with Brenda. And Brenda's got a tough task ahead of her because her term is 1 year. And so we want to make sure that she tackles the priorities that she's setting forward, has the connection with the chapter presidents on a regular basis. So Brenda, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, so I spoke with the previous student rep, which is Jorge Flores, and he had the student committee. He was running a student committee while he was doing his term. And he told me that allowed him to facilitate the communication. And I myself have already started an Excel sheet that I have sent out to some of the student chapter presidents, So it's not just going to be the presidents. I'm doing like groups of 5 where the presidents and the vice presidents are joining into a Zoom meeting, letting me know what is it that they want to see during the term. So I have a couple ideas. My proposals, I'm going to share them with them in detail and let them know if they have any questions. Well, they're going to let me know if they have any questions, any feedback they want to give me, and what they want to see. So for example, my idea is to keep it maybe between 5 to 7. I don't want to make it too big because I want to be able to, have that communication. If it's too big, it's going to be like, there's going to be some missing links. So, that said, like those 5 to 7 people, I want to make sure that they're students across the nation, across everywhere. So I can get representation, say from the East, the West, and then I have Puerto Rico, everywhere across. And hopefully having their involvement, they can get inspired. That way they can try and run for the student rep. That way we don't have just one person running, and maybe hopefully we can just have a minimum of 2. That way it's just not one student running. And if it's not just 2, maybe we have 3. That would be like a great number to have. Some of the proposals that I have that I would like to get them involved with would be the student orientation, which is similar to the boot camp. And I just want to make sure that we propose that better, because I did it was my first convention, and I was lucky enough to know people that gave me tips. But then when I went over there were some students that it was their first convention as well, and they had no idea that they had to RSVP. I came last minute. I didn't know it was going to be this expensive, and for that reason, I mentioned that the food vouchers were very, very helpful because they were about $60, and it really covered an expense that students do have to worry about, because some of them either they have part-time, some of them they had to save a lot of money to be there. And another thing that I am proposing would be trying to get rideshare vouchers, since it's in downtown LA. For example, my student chapter, we tried to ease on the expense by getting an Airbnb. And since it's going to be in downtown Miami, all the Airbnbs are going to be very, very far away. So they're not going to be close by. So I believe that having that rideshare, getting like sponsored, whether it's by Lyft or Uber, that would really help and lift off some costs from the students, and just having them better prepare for their trip. What to expect, how to better tailor their resume, just be able to promote that. And the students that will be part of my student committee will go ahead and communicate that. Besides, I'll communicate that, but they'll help me go ahead and just remind everyone, just in case, like let's say if I'm working on something else, they'll go ahead and help me with that. I did make an extra note. Let's see, for scholarships, I proposed a scholarship that will be judged by that student committee. So to avoid any biases or unfairness, they're gonna be aware it's an application that I will be sending out next week. They will not be able to participate. I will not be able to participate in that scholarship, just to avoid that bias. And the way that I'm planning to gather money for that scholarship is that every year student chapters, they fundraise. So I will go ahead and ask in this small survey if they want to participate in the scholarship. If they do, they would have to give a small percentage of their fundraise for their chapter to participate. Obviously, we need them to be NAHJ members. And that way, I got a great idea yesterday by Luis Joel, that scholarship, instead of it being like just money that we're going to give out, it's going to be kind of like the purpose for it will be for them to go to the NAHJ convention. So say this money is what you're going to, oh, sorry. Did you have a question, Arelis?
Oh, when you're done, I just like, these are all terrific. I just wanted to not make more work for you, but if you could document everything that you're doing and keep like all the papers so that we could include it in the operations manual as like best practices, that would be great.
Okay. Okay. So then I was saying that, so basically that scholarship would go to the expense of the NAHJ convention. So say it's going to cover the registration, it can cover the flight. So that way that money, it's going to be invested in professional growth.
Great.
So that
Thank
was
you.
some of the ideas that I had.
Perfect.
And I have a question. I have a
Yes.
question. Do you think the students would be willing to stay in dorms? Because it's a summertime and the dorms probably would be empty. University of Miami is pretty close to downtown. And I'm a UM grad, so I have some connections there with the journalism department. So maybe we can get some dorm rooms, comped dorm rooms, and they may be able to stay there. And maybe we just provide the transportation to and from the downtown Miami conference.
Yeah, anything, because I know like the Airbnbs are expensive, especially in the summertime.
Yeah,
So
Miami,
dorms
expensive, and
and
those, and like you said, there's some of them are really far away and it takes a long time to do that. So remind me to check, and I'll check with the University of Miami and see if they would be willing to donate some dorm rooms for students.
Brenda, it's Nanette. And if you just maybe want to jot down, because they are students and depending on the district, I am not familiar, obviously, with Florida nor the Miami area, but the school buses and the transportation, and it is summertime, maybe see what type of an agreement, if possible, and utilize what the district already has as far as transportation. They may just be there on what's called a day pass. So, they're just up and back versus overnighting, etc. So again, it's just a thought, Brenda, if you wanted to check that out. If you don't have time, I would gladly, make a call or whatever and find out throughout the school districts if we can utilize the buses for free, hopefully. So
yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind. I wrote that down. And then let's see, David did mention that there was going to be like the student, kind of like a mini student convention in February, and the registrations open in October. So that is going to be at USC, so California. So in that case, like I will be connecting with the student chapters nearby and letting them know like what the process is to maybe go ahead and ask for their university, their dean, if they can get like a bus that can take them. Maybe the school might fund it. That way they don't have to maybe spend on gas, transportation, whatever that is.
The other thing is, if David agrees, maybe some students can volunteer their time to help out in the convention. And in exchange, we can comp some of the registration or part and whole or something like that. If they volunteer one day, maybe they get the second day for free. Something like that would work out, and sort of have them, be exposed to the conference, but help us out at the same time.
Great. Okay. Perfect. So the next two, actually the next four.
I have a question. I'm sorry, Yvette.
Yes. I'm sorry, McNally, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Okay, that's okay. Sometimes that hand thingy, you can barely see it.
Yep.
If you want to engage Miami-Dade School District, I will suggest that you get on the phone pronto, because Miami School District is one of the largest school districts in the nation, and the school bus system is super busy even during summertime. Okay, we're talking about low-income kids that are, driven around for different summer programs and all that. A lot of Title I schools. So, you should try and reach out to the folks there right away. Okay, just heads up on that.
Thanks, McNally. The next four are task forces that we've already had in place from the previous board. One is the Investigative and Data Task Force, chaired by McNally Torres. We have the Afro-Latino Task Force, chaired by Kelly Ortiz, our former financial officer, and member Yvonne Latte. And then we've got the Sports Task Force, co-chaired by Ileana Limon and Joe Rodriguez. And then we have, Arelis, if you could speak to the visual task force that you're in the middle of forming, that would be helpful. But I've checked in with the existing ones and they will continue. We'll post those as well. We've spoken about the work that they've done the last term, but I've checked in with them to make sure that each of the task forces are tackling specific goals and priorities. But Arelis, do you want to talk about the visual one? Because that one would be new.
Yeah, so we're still that's sort of on it's still information. We had our first event though, our workshop, the 2-day workshop that Chris Lee handled for us was a smashing success. That was funded by the Trace, which is a consortium of nonprofit newsrooms who have already said that they'd be willing to fund that again. So we had the workshop at the convention that was well attended, and we had several MPPA members who are also Latino, Latinx that came about. So it's just a matter of, getting them all together and figure out what a visual task force can do. We're also exploring opportunities. I see that the MPPA president is here or was here. Exploring opportunities where we could work together so that a task force for NAHJ isn't like reinventing the wheel, but is doing more partnership work than anything else to try and elevate the opportunities for our visual journalists and NAHJ. Julio Cortez had offered himself, that's the AP photographer, I forget, I think he's in California now, as chair, but I want to get him a co-chair and recruit a couple other people. Yuen is there with me on top of all her various other activities, but we haven't quite figured out the format of that yet.
Okay. And then the last committees that we have would be new advisory committees. One is the Latino Reporter Advisory Committee. Arelis, you've had exploratory meetings with that group as well. I don't know if you have anything additional to add, and then I'll get to the last couple of advisory committees.
Yeah, no, this advisory committee consists of lots of different people, professionals, members. It's probably, let me back up. So the Latino Reporter, for people who don't know, and this is one of the things that the advisory committee is looking to do, is probably the most successful program that NAHJ has ever created. As student projects, the idea started in NAHJ. I see Professor Maggie Rivas Rodriguez is here. She's one of the founders, or if not the founder, of the student projects. And we're coming up on 35 years and looking ahead to 40 years for NAHJ, but 35 years for the student projects. And what this committee is looking to do, hold on, I have a whole script for this, is to basically pull together a group of former mentors, alumni, and academics to formalize the operations of student projects for its long-term sustainability and to honor its nearly 35-year history. So you're going to hear a lot from this committee. They're doing a lot of work, looking to do a lot of work already. I see some of my members here. Cindy's here, Professor Rodriguez, Joe, who have already taken on leadership positions for the kinds of things that we want to do. But again, I think a big part of this is just going to be able to tell the story of the Latino Reporter more forcefully, to make sure that NAHJ as a membership understands like we created this and everyone else copied off of us. And this is, again, one of the most successful programs in the history of NAHJ. There are a bunch of alum even in this meeting, alums, if not mentors and students right in this meeting. So you'll hear a lot from them in the coming weeks, and they hope to make, again, some kind of presentation to the board in December.
Great, thank you. There's two, I'm going to combine the Freelance Advisory Committee and the LGBTQIA+ Advisory Committee, which Luis Joel has been doing a lot of work, exploratory meetings to look at what the needs are for both of these two committees. But we think it's especially important given that the conference is going to be in Miami, in a state that's so aggressively anti-gay as Florida, that we be prepared to communicate and work with our members to tackle some of the issues ahead of the conference. So Luis Joel, can you talk about sort of the feedback that you got from those exploratory meetings, the interest and sort of what you're looking to do in conjunction with Julio Cesar on the Freelance Advisory Committee? It's two different topics. Go ahead.
Exactly. In the first place, we first organized an exploratory meeting regarding the LGBTQ committee. That exploratory meeting was done on September 1. We had a pretty big attendance, like approximately 15 members attended. They were all very well-known members, a mix of student members and also regular members that have been very commonly involved with NSJ. And they gave a list of solutions and possible challenges that they are facing. Like, for instance, some of the challenges that they mentioned that they would like to tackle with this LGBTQ committee are sexual harassment among NHA members that self-identify as LGBTQ, pressure to look and act in a certain way to fit in the journalism industry, education about different experiences of LGBTQ people in different states and locations, sensitivity training on LGBTQ reporting for professional and student chapters, proper oaths of pronouns in Spanish, that I can say that's a very big issue in my language, and threats and violence against LGBTQ reporters. These were the challenges that they all mentioned during that meeting. And they also mentioned a lot of very good ideas and possible initiatives we could develop if the committee is approved by the board. They mentioned conference fellowships to attend our annual conference, conference workshops, organize and focus on how to navigate newsrooms as LGBTQ reporters and how to navigate the journalism industry in general, being natural and being themselves, assist members who identify as LGBTQ people to attend our conference, as I mentioned, develop an LGBTQ terminology book on sensitivity training, and also incorporating 2 new categories to the NAHJ Awards for best coverage of LGBTQ and Latino issues, and also award those people that have been working for LGBTQ rights within our association, making our LGBTQ membership visible. So they offered a lot of very good solutions. They also give a very broad sense of what challenges they're facing. The structure that we discussed in this committee is approved is having 3 different subcommittees. Those different subcommittees will be focusing on 3 big ideas that will be developed along this next year. And of course, the focus of each committee, of each subcommittee, will depend of what the committee approves, because it's important that the things that we are going to work on, they have to approve it as the members of that specific committee. And about the freelance committee, that exploratory meeting was hosted last September 8th. We had members like Rufi Munoz, Cecilia Figueroa, Ligia Navarro, people that have been freelance members for many years. Cecilia's here, she's going to talk later. And some of the challenges that they mentioned was like problems finding media outlets with budgets to pay for their work as freelance reporters, lack of a support system, and other like spaces where they can meet and talk with other freelance reporters, issues getting paid for their stories on media outlets. I know that is a very big challenge and issue, especially here in the US, because we can see it very often on social media, especially on Twitter. Lack of work and paid opportunities. And they offered a huge and enormous list of possible solutions, like developing a freelance journalist database within our organization, gathering more data and robust data about our freelance members' beats and locations, making member clicks easier for editors to find freelance reporters, more training for freelance reporters during across the year and the convention, creating fellowships for freelance journalists to attend our annual conference, putting social media groups together to keep freelance reporters connected, building pitch pipelines, having co-working time, creating a training calendar for freelance members so they can keep on track of what trainings NAHJ will be offering, and having a toolbox for freelance reporters. So these are all great ideas. I know that they are too much and they will be impossible to accomplish in just 1 year, but my responsibility, and Julio says our responsibility also, who is part of this committee, will be help and guide their members to keep on track and to focus on these things that are really accomplishable. We can have results by the end of the year or by the next convention. So that's a quick summary. I wrote some proposals that I sent to all the board. I also posted on my social media, and I will be sending it to the chat for those members that are connected and want to download it.
Great, thank you. And Julio Cesar, did you want to add anything? I don't know if you're able to because you're driving.
Yeah, so thankfully right now I am parked for about 15-20 minutes specifically for the meeting. Yeah, so I'm happy to help Luis Joel with this committee. One of the things that we're going to do is I'd like to reach out to the people who have already given feedback on the freelance map project and use this committee as a sounding board to find ways that we can improve things, because it's not just for at least with the freelance map project itself, it's not just a service for our freelance members, but also it's frankly, a service for the newsrooms that are represented with our members. When editors and producers need to find a reporter, we're going to be working with them as well for this project.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think it can be overwhelming to try to tackle every single issue that's out there. So I'm glad to hear that that you would be prioritizing, because I think that's what we really have to look at. Like, what do we want to accomplish by the end of the year, and set those goals, and everything else can continue. The work can continue to try to tackle those issues. It may not happen right away. It may take a little bit more time, but we know that they'll be on the list, and it's work that can continue the following year. And I especially love Julio Cesar's freelance map idea, because we get a ton of calls. People are always asking us to recommend folks in different states. And when we have a map, it can look geographically at where our freelancers are working, what their areas of expertise, whether they're bilingual. It's going to be an amazing service that we can provide them. So I think that's a very sort of tangible goal that we can work towards. All right. Any questions on those?
I just have a comment. I just have a comment.
Okay.
Joel, we should be aware of that if the governor DeSantis wins the governorship, that he is very adept at looking for things to promote his high profile, his profile even more. And he's if he wins the governorship, he's in line for the presidency. So that's kind of like what the feeling is in Florida. So we should be aware of this, and prepare appropriately, and figure and determine how we want to handle that kind of situation. So like you said, so we don't get caught like at the last minute. DeSantis is really good at picking issues and taking them to the extreme, obviously. And I just don't want us to be caught like oh my God, if he wins, if he doesn't win, then we don't have to deal with that stuff. But he's leading in some polls, so there's the possibility that he will win.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think that one of the things that the LGBTQ committee should do once it's approved is working in collaboration with the rapid response team, so we can prepare for the convention. That I know that that's a concern that you have, and I also have, because Florida's a very complicated state to thrive in.
Yes.
So something that we should do, and we will do.
Well, and the rapid response team right now, we don't have anybody. Well, we have Deborah Cordero. There should be equal representation on that too.
Yes, can we give a couple? Well, I don't know if we have a specific time for that, but can we let Cecilia give some words, because she wants to talk? Cecilia Figueroa, she's a regular member. Or I don't know.
I want to be fair to our members, and we do have a public section at the end. I don't want to favor anyone. So at the end, we'll have a public portion for the members. So definitely she can talk then. Was there anyone else from the board? Okay. The very last one, and sorry it's taking so long, but we just wanted to provide the members with feedback on all of these, is the Broadcast Advisory Committee, which is Julio Cesar's area. If you can just quickly talk about sort of the areas that you're hoping to tackle with that.
Yeah, of course. So I'd like to form, at first it'll be one single committee, a Broadcast Advisory Committee. But the goal is to have the members of those committees grow to the point where it's 4 to 6 people representing each area. At the very least, to start, I would want at least 1 or 2 people from each of the following areas: radio, production, photographers, and on camera. And when I say photographers, I mean videographers, but that's just what we call them in TV. So that we have a good place to hear the struggles that people are working with when it comes to working in the different areas of broadcast. This committee, it won't be having regular Zoom meetings. Instead, it'll just be a group chat, and there will be a couple Zoom meetings here and there. But I know that Valerie, for example, wants to help, and I'm very, very glad that she does. And happy to have you on board, Valerie. Along with some other members, so that we can know what it is that our membership needs when it comes to their broadcast needs.
Okay, great. All right. So if there are no other questions on the committees, what we would then need is a motion to approve the committees, the task force, and the advisory committees. And then I can ask for any other questions after we get that motion on the table. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
All right, so does anyone have any other questions or discussion?
I have a couple comments about the committees. I was reading the bylaws yesterday, and there are some things that I think we should be aware of. Like in the first place, something that I found out was that committees should be taking minutes, about their meetings, and that's something that we should be doing from now on my view, respecting what the bylaws says. Another thing that I found out in the bylaws was that the committees should also be sending out notices of all meetings, like we do for the regular board meetings, for transparency matters. And in my view, something that we should do, it's approve not also the name of the committee, but also like a short definition of the committee. So we can be careful with the powers of that committee. You know, like if the LGBTQ committee focus is working on LGBTQ issues, its only focus should be that. If the freelance committee, its work or its mission is working for freelance membership, its only focus should be that. And that's something that we should approve in my view. But those are three things that I would like to point out.
Yes, and the investigative task force subcommittees, they take notes, we keep those online. But I love the idea of including the definition on the list that we're gonna have on the board page, so that people are aware of not just the name of the committee, but what the goals and intentions are. And it's just a good way to keep us on task as well, and focused, because there's, like I said, a million things we can tackle. But we want to make sure that's clearly defined for our members as well. So I love that. Anything else? Anything else? All right. So I think for this one, let's do the a vote by roll call. Blanca, if you could do that next.
Yes, 1 moment. Ready? Okay, so roll call, Yvette,
Yes.
Aralis,
Yes.
Julio Cesar. I know he's driving. Julio, can you hear me?
Aye. To both. I can hear you, and I vote yes.
Okay, McNally,
Sí.
I think that was a yes. Marilyn? Marilyn, you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Luis Joel?
See,
Adriana?
Yes.
David Cordero? Oh, I think, you know what, he had to step away because he's in the Dominican. Nanette?
Yes.
Johnny?
Yes.
Brenda, she doesn't vote, right? Brenda? Okay. And then Blanca, I vote yes. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so, right?
Okay. All right. So the motion passes. Great. I'm really excited about all this, all these committees and task forces and advisory committees, and we'll follow up with all these steps. Next up, we're going to go into executive session. So I need a motion to go into executive session. Just so the members know, as soon as we come back, we'll come back into this public link, and we'll alert everyone to that as well. BA, are you there?
I am here, yes.
Okay, so if you can just stand by for a second. First, I'm gonna call for the motion to go into executive session. Can we?
Can you tell us what we're going to be going to executive session for?
Yes, and that's on the agenda. It's the NAHJ Audit and the Latino Journalist Action Fund.
And what is that?
This would be in order to do any sort of advocacy work on laws involving journalists, we would have to have a separate action fund to do that. So we're going to discuss the possibility of that.
Okay.
All right. So do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I
McNelly and
Asking a couple questions here on the chat. How long and? is
yes,
this-
I'm going to have BA address that as soon as we have that motion. Yes, 1 second. Do we have a second?
Second,
Adriana? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so BA, can you, the members are asking how they'll know when we'll be back from executive session.
Correct. So I'm about to publish on a tweet that announces National Board will go into executive session, and that when we return to the same Zoom link, we'll tweet again alerting members. And there's never been really a set time unless Yvette, you want to set a time limit for the conversation.
Yeah, that's really to figure out how long we're gonna be in executive session, but I love the tweet.
Yes, I wish I knew. I don't want to put a time limit because I don't want to rush the board members. But I would give it approximately half an hour. So, so yeah. Okay, and then board, keep an eye out on your email because we're gonna have a separate tweet to go into executive session. Excuse me, a separate link for the Zoom to go into executive session. Okay. All right. So I'll see you in a bit. We'll see the members in a bit as soon as we come back from executive session. Thank you. BA, just want to double check. Were you able to send the tweet out to the membership to let them know we're back in regular session?
I did. Mhm.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. We're gonna tackle a couple items. They include the 2021 NAHJ audit. And before we go there, I just want to say a few words to thank Marilyn Garate, our financial officer, who has done an inordinate amount of work digging through our past audits, this current audit, to prepare us to get to this point. And so I'm going to hand it over to her so she can give our members a summary of what the audit found, and then we can go from there.
Thank you, Yvette. Appreciate it. And before I started, I just want to thank David Peña for all his efforts to help me with the audit, and the auditor as well, and the bookkeeper. But thank you, David, for digging in with this and trying to get us to a better place financially, with information that can help us as an organization get to the next level. So the audit, pretty much what we received, the audit. Let me back up for a second. So the audit encompasses a couple of different things. Audits are complicated, but essentially they encompass an opinion, statement, balance sheets, income sheets, cash flows, and notes that sort of indicate sort of areas that we need to work on or things like that. So you have four options for an audit, and one of the options is the best option, and that's what we received. We received an unqualified opinion, which means we have a clean report for our audit. And so the other, I'm not going to go over the other ones, but essentially we have a clean report. NAHJ has received consistently received clean reports every year, which essentially means that our financials are in order and they're presented. They present an accurate picture of what's going on in the organization. Keep in mind that this is a snapshot of time in an organization. It's not and the be all end all. But what's important for audits is our funders look at audits for funding purposes, and that's one of the things that we sort of take a look at. And what else? So the audits looks at so besides a qualified opinion, you can look at the balance sheet, and you can look at our expenses as well. You can look at the income that comes in, the revenue and the expenses. And revenues are Typical revenues are, the convention is a big revenue. We get a lot of money from booth and exhibits, fees, sponsorships, the typical stuff that we all know we get money from. And expenses, our top expenses are personnel, which is kind of normal for many organizations to have a lot of expenses with personnel. And we'll be taking a look at all this stuff in terms of future expenses and revenue, and trying to figure out different ways to make more money for NHJ, but to also control our expenses and figure out ways to fund programs and help them sustain themselves as well. What else do I need to tell you guys? The information, if anybody has questions about the audit, they can feel free to email me at mgarretex@nhja.org. If anybody has questions, we can try to take them. I don't know, Yvette, if you want to take them now or not. But essentially our audit, the key here thing is the audit, it's a clean audit. And we came out, looking good. We have some issues with a couple internal controls, but I think that's just kind of a reclassification of a couple things. And other than that, I think that, and you can see those are at the back. Usually what happens is they reconcile stuff to make sure that, like you reconcile your budgets and make sure everything is adequate and in line with what we say we're doing. And I think that we can look forward to hopefully having a better year next year, even better year next year. We have the conference in Miami. One of the things, for example, that you'll find in the misstatements is the commitments that we have for our conferences and so things like that. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me and I can answer the questions if anybody has them. I'm talking to members in general. The audits will be posted on the website. The audit will be posted with the other audits on the website. And we'll provide them to members and be transparent about that.
Great. Thank you, Marilyn. Do any of the board members have any questions right now? Okay. All right. So do we have a motion to approve the 2021 NAHJ audit?
I so move.
Seconded.
All right. Blanca, can you do a roll call vote on this one?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I
did.
Okay. Yes, I will do the roll call. One moment. Yvette,
Yes.
Arelis,
Yes.
Julio Cesar,
Aye.
McNally,
Aye.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Oh, shit. Valerie,
Yes.
Luis Joel,
Yes.
Adriana,
Yes.
David Cordero,
Yes.
Rebecca, okay. Nanette,
Yes.
Johnny,
Yes.
Blanca, I do. And did I miss anybody? I don't think so. So,
Okay, great. Motion passes. Next up, we have the 990 forms. David?
Thank you. The 990 is our national tax return for the organization. It builds off of the audit information for our audited financials. So you'll find on our audit, on our 990, the income, expenses, questions about the organization, what we do, our mission, our programs. And if you notice, as part of the 990, we also have a registration page and a small tax return with California. As we, for members that don't know, we used to be an association in California. We were in California and then we merged and transitioned to Washington, DC. So until next year, when we complete the full transition, we still have to file our regular 990 nationally, our short version for California, and our registration as a nonprofit in California. So those are the annual tax returns for 2021. And happy to answer any questions today, or you can email me directly, but those will be also once approved by the board and signed, will join the audit on our website.
And can you mention when the deadline is to file those, when they're due?
I don't have that in front of me, but I know it's coming up and we have to file that tax return annually. I don't know because there's two different dates between the California one and the federal one.
Okay.
I will get back with it.
Any questions from the board? Okay. All right. So do we have a motion to approve the 990 form?
So moved.
That's Arelis. And do we have a second?
I second.
That's Adriana. All right. Blanca, can you do a roll call vote on this one?
Yes. Yvette,
Yes.
Arelis,
Yes.
Julio Cesar,
Hi.
McNally,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Valerie,
Yes.
Luis Joel,
Yes.
Adriana,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Nanette,
Yes.
Johnny,
Yes.
and Blanca. I do. Anyone else?
All right. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Next up, we have a special presentation by Valeria Fernandez, who's our managing editor of Palabra, our publishing platform. This is part of a series I hope to continue throughout the year, in addition to presentations from staff and our committee members, keep our members informed of the work that we're doing. I want to give Valeria the floor to talk a little bit about the great work that that our freelance members are doing with Palabra. Valeria, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Yvette. I've been looking forward to this opportunity this morning, and I'm very excited to see all the faces and that I got to hear a little bit of the board. You know, I hadn't attended another executive session before, so this was very informative. So bear with me because I am going to try to do a PowerPoint presentation, and I am the worst at that. Let me see. Here we go. We're gonna go here. There we go. Palabra, the one and only. I'll tell you just very quickly that I want you to know that I wear, like they say in my country, Uruguay, the freelancer t-shirt. Me pongo la camiseta, because I have been a freelancer for the past 13 years. And I have freelanced for everything you could possibly imagine. Because as a freelancers, we hustle, right? So I work from the AP, writing breaking news in Spanish, to CNN Spanish. I was a correspondent. I have done long form magazine features for places like, sadly, now defunct California Sunday Magazine. I have written for The Guardian. I've done radio for NPR, for The World. So I pretty much, I think I've seen everything under the sun. The only thing I haven't done is like hosted. Well, I do. I host a podcast in Spanish, but I've never been a TV anchor. So one of the things I am very excited to do in Palabra, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, is to fulfill that promise of paying well, paying on time, and mentoring our journalists. And not just the journalists at NAHJ, but journalists, people of color that are coming and are becoming part of our family. And we're opening up day after day after day. Now, we don't just work with reporters, right? There is an entire team behind Palabra that are freelancers too. Every single thing we do is supported by copy editors, illustrators, photojournalists, videographers, documentarians, and now fact checkers, because we have a fact checker in the house for those, you know, investigative pieces and long features that we've been doing. And that is extremely important. Another thing that's been happening, and I easily lose track of time, so you'll have to wave at me, Yvette, if I'm going beyond 6 minutes, is that we have a lot of partnerships now and syndication. And you might have read this in the handout I gave you earlier. Last year, thanks to the good work of Ricardo Sandoval, our founding editor, we solidified this partnership with Advanced Local, which means that Palabra now has a potential to reach an audience of 16 million people. And that is huge for the reporters that freelance with us, because our goal is to really uplift them and give their work a bigger platform, right? So we welcome collaborations. We have partnerships with the Texas Observer, and we have partnerships with URL Network. You could check them out. They are a lot of publications that very like to Palabra serve certain audiences and communities, like the Sahan Journal in Minnesota, that's a nonprofit. Epicenter in New York is highly community-based, Documented, that has a really strong audience engagement project. Anyways, then we have Voices of Monterrey, which just did a beautiful essay on mental health in partnership with them. And Environmental Health News is a new partner. And Yvette is going to learn more about this, because we are working on a series on pesticides in California. And for that project, we have 4 reporters involved. One of them is a photojournalist who's going to be writing. There is a videographer, and then 2 other investigative reporters, all of them with different levels of experience. So the more veteran reporters are helping the young ones that are not necessarily experienced in covering environmental news. And that's, as I was saying, part of what we do in Palabra and NAHJ as a whole is we mentor. And mentoring means this is like a crafty work that each story is different, and each journalist is going to have a different need, and we try to cater to that. And following on that theme, another thing we've been doing to mentor is supporting also writers from Latin America and writers here in the United States that write in Spanish and then want to do that crossover of starting to write in English. I was one of them. I'm never going to get rid of my accent. I love my accent. And I know how intimidating it was to have my first chance to be published in English. And we know the great work is being produced in a lot of our Spanish language publications, but it's like sometimes it's ignored, it's treated as less than, just because, you know, those who only speak English don't have access to that great work. So we've been really uplifting that. It takes a great deal of resources to have the commitment to publish a bilingual story, and especially one that is investigative or that is a feature. We have interpreters too, translators that are working behind the scenes, and those are freelancers that we are creating opportunities for. Now I'm going to transition to mention really quickly a few specific stories that I'm very proud of. And in line with that, we have been gathering resources to send the reporters also to do work in places like Guatemala and Mexico. And that's so important. This story, some of you might have seen it, and we're in the process of publishing the Spanish version in our site, but also together with Proceso. And I tell you, I'm still tweaking some of the words in there. Took us like 2 years. And the team of journalists that work on it, Sadie Sanchez, she's a photojournalist. This is like one of her main written pieces. In Abraham, they work big time to document the life of a man who falls into immigration detention. And we think it's just a story about family separation, but then it turns out he was wanted by the government of Guatemala for alleged crimes he committed there in the 80s during the Dirty Wars. So we choose to tell the story from the perspective of his wife, but we also go into Guatemala to meet the wife of the man who disappeared, who was, forcefully disappeared, and allegedly these men detained in in California, was responsible for her disappearance. So we tell of these very intimate, different perspectives in a beautiful way. This is where we first started using a fact checker. It was massive, and it was the first time for them. And I am very happy about that, because moving forward, they're going to take those skills from that experience and apply, hopefully, to other work they're going to do to be extremely rigorous. Recently, and we got amplified by Axios Latino with this story. We published this investigation, again, 1.5 years long, produced by a veteran reporter with a young team of reporters at Cicero News, that focuses on the fact that Latino deaths are undercounted in connections with COVID. And actually, not just COVID, a whole host of other reasons, right? And the CDC even admits it in this piece. So this was massive. We got some coverage on NPR also. The reporter got interviewed in a couple of other places. And we hope to do more of this in the future. And finally, I just want to highlight, well, not finally, I'm almost there. This piece is a column written by Michelle Garcia. If you know her, she is just fabulous reporter that presents perspectives that are in front of you, but you don't seem to see. And sadly, with the tragedy happened in Uvalde, you know, Palabra, we are covering the news, but we cover it as features. We take our time. We don't do breaking news. We know that our job is to step back and look at the big picture. And so we reached out to Michelle, and thankfully, through the URL network, we were able to pay her, you know, a really good fee for her work, and also to commit to get it published in other places. So Texas Observer also picked it up. And, you know, we were all coming together reading the piece. It's challenging to have several editors and all the process. And our team in Palabra, you know, just did fantastic turning this around. And then she was also, again, interviewed in public media. And we scooped these from places like The Guardian. You know, The Guardian, the New York Times could have had these, but they didn't. What were they waiting for? Well, here it is. Now, if they want, they can publish too. So there's just so much coming up for Palabra into this next year. And one thing that I launched early on in April is Altavoz Lab. And Altavoz Lab is like a more intensified experience of mentorship within Palabra. It's the same model, but we have 6, you see the photos here, some of the people. We have 6 different mentors, you know, people like the Martiel, Astrid Galvan, which was Axios Latino, Rusanda Giri, Jay Ali, that publishes the New York Times Magazine, Linda Hugh, who's a pro investigative reporting, narrative journalism. And we have them work for like 7 months on specific projects that have to do with accountability. And all of these reporters are freelancers, most of them working with publications in different parts of the country, like Florida. We have someone in Washington, Puerto Rico. And so the stories will be published in their outlets, but also in Palabra. So watch for them pretty soon, October, November. And they have a very strong focus. We hope to continue to do Altavoz into the next year because it's a more targeted experience for them. They spend more time with their editors one-on-one. And it's actually not that expensive, but they all get paid, which is fantastic. So to wrap it up, Así Fue is going to be the Palabra podcast, is on the works, another space to uplift the work of our journalists. They're going to be having conversations during the show. Each episode is going to be a different beat. We're going to mix journalists from different beats in those dialogues. We're going to have reporting, featured reporting in there, and we have a call to pitches that should be coming out in the newsletter, thanks to VA, and you can email me. I'll put my email at the end if you want that call to pitches for more audio reporters and editors. So we're trying to create more of those opportunities. And we are also on the works of redesigning the Palabra website so it can be a home for a lot of these new mediums that we, well, not new, but all of these multimedia projects that we're exploring. So we can feature more documentaries, our podcasts, other people's podcasts, more opportunities for the NAHJ journalists and others that want to be part of our organization. And finally, I want to invite you to check the page because this week we had 2 killer stories. A reporter spent 6 weeks aboard a ship in the Mediterranean, and she writes about the parallels between US and border policy and the European border policy from a human perspective. And we have a documentary that we supported coming out that focuses on the indigenous wisdom of the Tainos in Puerto Rico and how they are fighting for climate justice in the island. So with that, Yvette, I don't know if there's room for any questions. I try to go fast.
No, thank you, Valeria. That was a great overview. Do any of the board members have any questions?
I do. I have questions.
Go ahead, McNally.
I see when you were showing the partners, I guess the media outfits that have published the work. And by the way, I think that you and I that we provided you a story that you guys published last year from one of our series. Do you have an MOU when you're working with all these outfits, memorandum understanding?
We do with some of them. Some of the partnerships precede me, like the Texas Observer, that was something that was established before. With Environmental Health News, we created like an agreement in terms of, you know, how we're gonna credit each other. So it's on a case-by-case basis. I also totally forgot to mention that's there. It's Microsoft, which is also starting to distribute Palabra, and we certainly have a signed contract for that, which David has reviewed. I believe you signed it, David.
Do you have one with the Latino News Network?
No, we don't have one with the Latino News Network. We've been doing that sort of like by emails, committing, for example, like you have to credit Palabra in this particular way. You cannot modify our stories. We published some of their stories, and you know, we asked them what are the requirements for republication. So, you know, typically is to credit them on top. We had some problems with a few instances in which publications that I didn't know took Palabra content and tried to republish it without proper credit, and I had to reach out to them. So it turns out that there was a previous established collaboration, but I don't want to use a bad word because we are in public, but basically we had to reevaluate how they were sharing because the credit wasn't properly attributed. And so now every time they want to publish something, they reach out to me and I say yes or no, and they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
I think a MOU will help you with that. The other question that I have for you, you talking about investigative reporting, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, do we have insurance, legal insurance coverage?
Yes, thank you for asking about that. That is extremely important. Yes, we do. Yeah, we do.
Okay. The third question is, it has come to my attention, or people's attention, that on the board that some of the folks, this is supposed to be a website that was created for our members. How do you make sure that everybody who is writing for Palabra or doing any kind of work is really a member NAHJ? Is there any mechanism where you are checking that?
Well, some people there, I'm example, you know, I've been a member for like a long time, 20 years mostly, and you know, sometimes my membership expires. So up front, when they approach you and they pitch a story, you ask them if they're a member, and then sometimes they will tell you, well, no, not currently, I need to renew, and we get them, you know, to renew. Sometimes you have to follow people a little bit more to remind them. There's been a few instances with not the primary writer, but when somebody is like a photographer that comes in one instance at the last minute, in which, you know, I might have forgotten to tell them or to check, are you like a member? But usually, like, we have a process with UNUN of going over, you know, who's registered and who's not, and, you know, just ask them to kindly make sure that they renew their membership. But my understanding, I mean, based on what was being done before I arrived, is that if you're not a member, you could become a member if you want to write for Palabra.
Okay. Okay, well, apparently there has been some people that have published work there that are not members. And when you're talking about this travel or the stories, how do we get the funding for that? I mean, you're talking about somebody being in the Mediterranean. Is there a grant that is funding the traveling for reporters to do this kind of work?
Well, there is a combination of things. And I, you know, as a freelancer, I could tell you that sometimes the freelancer gets their funds and then they come to the publication and they say, look, I have, you know, so if you have instances like that, that's the case of Lexi. She was going to be doing that anyways. She approached us and we knew that she was working with other, you know, outlets like Al Jazeera for video and that sort of stuff. So we supported her with part of her insurance, because that was a concern of mine. That wasn't a large amount of money, but she didn't have it. And, you know, we wish that we could like do that on every single instance for reporters, but I was concerned, like, you know, you should have some protection, you should do it. And so we supported her with that. That was like $300 or something along those lines. Then in other instances, we help connect them with the resources. So we know there's different grants, let's say the International Women's Media Foundation or the Fund for Investigative Reporting. I'm sorry, Fund for Investigative Journalism. I am a board member, so I have to recuse myself if somebody presents an application, but they can still apply. So we connect them with all those resources, and in many instances, like in the case of Sadie, they were successful in getting funds for some of the stories in Guatemala that they did, not just on these men that was in detention, but also on transgender women. So we really try to connect them with the resources. And when we partner, let's say Texas Observer, we have a story right now, we're gonna go half and half on that payment. So that to me ensures that reporters really, they're getting paid fairly, they're getting paid well, and it expands the amount of reporters that we could help, that we could give more opportunities by doing that. With environmental health news, we're doing the same thing. They're gonna get paid pretty well, and these are pretty intensive reporting projects. And by combining those finances and our platforms, we give them more exposure and better pay.
Thank you.
And Magnelli, I'm sorry we didn't include the center in the logos.
I am more concerned about the mechanics behind. I know you guys are producing terrific work, and I really do appreciate that. And you know, we're here to help, and I'm here to help any way I can. If you want to get a copy of my MOU, I'll be happy to provide one for you.
Yeah, yes, please send it. Thank you very much. All of those are really great questions.
Oh my gosh, we have a lot of questions. David, then Marilyn, then Luis Joel.
Muy bien. Valeria, ¿puedo hablarte en español?
Sí, por supuesto.
Perfecto. Pues primero felicitarte. Yo creo que Palabra es una plataforma indispensable para nosotros. Así que gracias por tu trabajo. El comentario que quería hacer y recomendación es que me gustaría ver una participación equitativa de todas las regiones de la asociación. Así que, por ejemplo, si en algún momento tú como editora identificas que hay alguna región que no está participando o que los miembros no se están beneficiando de la plataforma de Palabra, te sientas en la libertad de compartir eso con los miembros de la Junta, ya sea con Yvette como directora o directamente con el director regional, y que tú sepas que nosotros como directores regionales pues también estamos para apoyarte en ese proceso, y si no sientes el apoyo, que también te sientas en la libertad de expresarlo.
Muchísimas gracias, David. Me parece, todos entienden español aquí. Everybody, okay. Me parece buenísimo eso, y quizás, no sé si las juntas que tengan regionales, quizás yo pueda participar para platicar, o se puede hacer algo con algunos de los reporteros ahí para correr la voz un poco más. Este fue un comentario que David me hizo llegar, que me pareció muy constructivo y muy útil. Y sí, o sea, yo estoy constantemente buscando más reporteros. Siempre estamos buscando más reporteros. Digo, hoy es una oportunidad, ya les pedí, ya les digo, ok, escríbanme porque estamos buscando reporteros para hacer historias de audio, pero estamos buscando constantemente. Entonces, me encantaría poder participar de alguna reunión que ustedes tengan, o que sigamos en contacto vía correo, y que ustedes, si quieren, presentarme con algunos reporteros que ya conocen en esa área, porque nosotros estamos, yo te puedo decir, nunca decimos que no. A veces le pedimos al reportero que trabaje más en su propuesta, porque queremos que sean exitosos, ¿no? Y que sea que a la hora de escribir estén enfocados. Pero estamos ahí para apoyarlos y abrir las puertas.
Perfecto, muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Just a quick summary in case we have members who don't speak Spanish. What David was saying is we need diversity in terms of the representation of our members geographically. And so he was saying maybe we should tap our regional directors to help. And Valeria said yes. One thing I'll add, just so everyone knows, the board of directors does not, Palabra has editorial independence. All of those decisions lie with Valeria. We don't interfere in the editorial process, but definitely in issues like this, we want to make sure that our members know, and that's one of the reasons why I'm having Valeria present here. Marilyn, you had a question, and then Luis Joel. Marilyn?
Yes, Valeria, thank you for doing this. I think that it's impressive, launching something like this. I'm sure it's a lot of work to maintain it, the high standards. Do you have any analytics or any sort of numbers that we could use to see the reaction that some of these stories have created, and the website itself, or however you judge that, to see whether one story is successful versus another story, and whether you go back to an issue or a topic, and how has that decided? Based on what criteria?
Yes, thank you, Marilyn. That's a really good question. Yes, well, as you know, we work very closely with BA's team at Veritas Group, and they handle all of our social media and the website and the analytics. So she's recently gave me an update of how we're doing. BA, can you? I'm really bad with the numbers. I know, are you there with us, or you?
I am, of course, yes.
Can you remind me, last year, it was we made it to 60K.
Give me one
right?
second, and I can pull up some comprehensive numbers.
Yeah, so
minutes. Sorry.
we have those numbers, and we're working in looking at that more. Right now, I have to tell you, Marilyn, we are really focused on the reporters and getting more the reporters on board, and like I say, and having an open door to the pitches that we receive, and there's a lot of focus on that. So a lot of what we decide to publish is really driven by creating the space for the reporters.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that would be reasonable is the Craig Newmark Journalism School has a 100-day certificate for entrepreneurship. And they take, efforts like this and try to figure out ways to sustain them financially. And that might be something to look at, to continue, as we go down the road, because you already have a product, and that is half the battle. You've established a product and you established a brand, and now we just have to make it, as financially rich as possible,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I could not disclose this yet, but Palabra was accepted into a certain training that is going to help, if I give you the words, accelerate some of the things that we're doing when it comes to the podcast and our audience engagement and strategic plans in that area, that I think is going to help us on the big picture, because there is a component of how do we monetize the podcast? How do we make this sustainable in the long run? And with David, there is a lot of efforts, hi David, behind the scenes to find, funders, all sorts of different things are happening behind the scenes to sustain Palabra. And we've been approached by a number of I don't want to call the names, places.
We're hearing some weird background.
Yeah.
Everyone, if you're not speaking, can you please mute yourself?
Alguien está mirando una telenovela. No, it's a joke. Yes. So BA, were you able to find those numbers?
Yes, absolutely. So each year we've actually experienced incredible growth traffic-wise and on social media. So for 2020, as an example, we surpassed about 20,000 cumulative views, unique visits on the site, and 40,000 page views. In 2021, we increased that with unique visits above 35,000 and page views above 66,000. We're on track to surpass that once again with over 62,000 visits at this moment. In regards to RSS subscribers, which is a really key number in retention rates among our traffic, we ended 2020 with 160 plus subscribers, 216 in 2021. And in 2022 to date, we have over 1,500 RSS subscribers. Our top countries where we experience over 100 unique views on average, United States and Puerto Rico leads that. It's followed by Mexico, Canada, Argentina, UK, Spain, Colombia, Guatemala, Ecuador, Germany, and India. There's about 50 more countries on that list, but those are the ones that predominantly lead the way. And in regards to markets across United States, it's California, New York, Texas, Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Virginia, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Maryland. One of the things that I can talk about, just because I've served next to Ricardo and Valeria, is from the jump or the inception of Palabra. We really were, to David's point, tracking things regionally speaking. And one of the trends that we noticed is that we could have really great control with readership and engagement when we intentionally focused on what markets were really strong for us naturally, and ones that weren't. And so one of the things we did, particularly with Ricardo, and we don't have to do it as much with Valeria, but it is one of those signals that we can use to kind of control that engagement. But we would really take a look at, if, for example, New Jersey was a really low rate, we would go there and place a story locally, and the next month, all of a sudden, we would not only have new engagement, but we could retain engagement because we are now exposed to that market. So it is something that we do look at, and there's a number of signals that we can use, but regionally speaking, we've been able to make great strides, not only across the country, but internationally because of that intentionality.
Okay, thank you, BA. And I think what would help is to maybe have some written reports on this information to share with the board. And we are coming up on a 4-hour meeting, so I just want to quickly pivot to Luis Joel, and then quickly, Johnny, your question as well after Luis Joel.
Sí, gracias Valeria por tu trabajo, de verdad que las historias que producen son excelentes, me he leído un par. Tengo una pregunta sobre, creo que la primera o la segunda diapositiva que presentaste, que tienen las organizaciones y diferentes medios, creo que está el Environmental Health, también está el Latino News Network. ¿Esos son medios que republican las historias de Palabra?
Esos son medios que a veces republican las historias de palabras, pero Environmental Health News estamos trabajando juntos con ellos porque son expertos en temas de medio ambiente y ciencia. Entonces, lo que estamos haciendo es ayudando a nuestros reporteros freelancers que quieren empezar a cubrir medio ambiente a que aprendan trabajando con estos expertos a hacer esa cobertura, porque necesitamos más reporteros en ese beat. No hay suficiente, tampoco lo hay en investigación, ¿no? Entonces, es una manera de que ellos con sus conocimientos de medio ambiente, de ciencias, nos están apoyando y estamos trabajando juntos. Ayer tuvimos una junta con dos equipos de reporteros. Anyways, I don't want to extend it too much, pero es increíble porque con el conocimiento que tienen vamos a tener un trabajo de audience engagement, van a preparar materiales para distribuir entre la comunidad de trabajadores agrícolas, vamos a producir un reportaje de radio en español, apoyado por Palabra, distribuido por Radio Bilingüe, que yo voy a apoyar. Entonces, es un gran proyecto que esperamos que crezca y que vamos a tener una junta con Yvette la semana que viene con ellos para ver cómo se puede crear algo como un fellowship o algo así. Sorry. Gracias, Luis.
Sí,
John,
y Palabra.
Sí.
Sí, y Palabra paga a esas entidades o es de manera colaborativa. Eso es una colaboración entre ambos. Entidades.
No. Nosotros no les pagamos a ellos. Nosotros le pagamos a los reporteros y ellos les pagan a los reporteros también. Entonces, ¿qué pasa? Juntamos el dinero de ellos con el nuestro y eso va para el reportero. Y también juntamos que ellos tienen un editor que es experto en Environmental News. Entonces, lo combinamos con nuestros editores y tenemos pues un producto de mayor calidad en un área que a lo mejor nosotros no éramos expertos. Esa es la idea.
Claro. Entonces, por último, además de subvenciones y becas, ¿ustedes están explorando otras fuentes de ingreso para palabra?
Bueno, sí hay a través de Microsoft, de la distribución de los reportajes, hay una manera de quizás monetizar eso. Ahora lo que estamos viendo es que es un poquitito glitchy, como dicen en inglés, cómo lo están lanzando el producto, porque ellos están acostumbrados a breaking news y nosotros somos features. Entonces, estamos viendo cómo podemos trabajar con Microsoft. De hecho, la semana que viene voy a ir a dar una charla sobre palabra con ellos. Esta es una buena oportunidad para ver cómo pueden amplificar más gente lo ve, más posibilidades hay de que ingrese. Advance Local nos paga a nosotros por sindicalizar. Entonces, eso también es una fuente de ingreso y que quizás pudieran haber más fondos porque quieren más cosas de palabra, les gusta mucho.
Gracias.
Sí, Johnny.
Gracias. So piggybacking on the Microsoft, I would suggest maybe lo del search engine optimization que estás hablando. Sería bueno preguntarles a ellos si hay alguna manera como feature que de alguna manera salga en el top a veces de los search, ¿no? A través de Microsoft. Eso creo que nos ayudaría mucho. También te felicito por el trabajo que has hecho, Valeria. Yo sé que más o menos empezaste interim y ahora ya estás full time y creo que estás buscando nuevas, diferentes opciones para hacerlo crecer. La pregunta sería, y bien breve, es sobre el podcast, que se me hace bien llamativo, porque originalmente no era algo, like, this wasn't part of palabra. So, can you tell us just a little bit more, maybe a timeline, or I know you might be aiming maybe for six podcasts or maybe one monthly, and then what is the cost? Is there any cost to it?
Oh, we should have a whole session to talk about the podcast because it's a thing on its own. Yeah, it's okay for me to talk about this, right, David, about the funder behind the podcast? I can hear you.
Yes, the board knows that Toyota provided.
Okay. Yes, so Toyota is supporting the podcast. They had an interest in that. It's something that there were conversations with my predecessors before to do this weekly. Right now, with the funding that we have, we're going to do 5 pilot episodes, and we're going to receive support of a pretty important distributor of podcasts that is going to help us, I believe, monetize the project and make it sustainable into the future. I think the key thing about this, Johnny, is to do something that is unique and that also has the stamp of NHA in it. It's like that becomes sort of the NHA podcast, right? Although we're calling it right now Así Fue. And that is a space for journalists to be recognized, to come and talk about their work, to talk with each other in a very, it's just different, in a different environment. It could be similar to In the Thick. It could have a Latino USA kind of flavor, but it's not going to be that, right? It has a different twist. Y ya me perdí con la pregunta. Para el dinero sí cuesta. Tenemos una productora. We specifically wanted to use some of the funding to hire a senior producer. I'm sort of like the executive producer overseeing the big picture. But we wanted to have this be an opportunity for someone who's up and coming to go back to our mission, right? And for the reporters that will be doing audio reporting there to also be relatively new, so they can also try a hand and doing this kind of work. Now, it is hard to be doing this sort of process and project with people that are just starting, right? And mentoring them. But it's something that we're really good at Palabra, I think, and at NHA. So I think after the pilot, we could assess whether or not, it makes sense to continue, if we have a plan to make it sustainable, and the board can decide if they want to put more resources in there, and so forth and so forth. And by the way, somebody said, you said I was working full time. No, I am a part-time contractor at NHA.
I'm dropping, Brenda had a question about how students can get involved, but I'm going to have you two connect so you can talk to her directly about that, Valeria. But I did drop the about page for Palabra in the chat box for everyone. This is not just for students, any freelancers who want to learn more about it. The process for how you pitch it is there. So thank you, Valeria. Thank you so much for presenting. And we will definitely, hopefully get more updates from you as well. All right. Next we have new business and we're almost through the agenda. And thank you for everyone who's sticking with us. Next we have new business. Our David and David are going to present on that. David, can you go first to outline the chapter information, and then David, I just want you to say a few words as well there too.
Okay. So on new business, we do have 2 professional chapters that have submitted all their paperwork 30 days ago. Unfortunately, their regional director is not able to make the call due to work commitment. So we do have 2 that are up for approval for the board, and 1 student chapter in Puerto Rico that David will speak about. And so that would be reactivating a professional chapter in Charlotte, approving a new chapter in Tampa, and then the student chapter. So go ahead, David, and talk about the student chapter.
Perfecto, muchas gracias, David. Un comentario rapidito antes de ir al capítulo estudiantil. Como saben, estoy en la República Dominicana y quería compartirles que el entrenamiento que llevamos a cabo hoy en Santo Domingo fue todo un éxito. Alrededor de 50 periodistas participaron, no se querían ir, pues el entrenamiento podía seguir por varias horas adicionales. Así que nada, luego les compartiré más detalles. De lleno ahora sobre este nuevo capítulo estudiantil que me emociona muchísimo. Cuando creamos el capítulo profesional en octubre pasado, ya hace casi un año, la profesora Ruth Hernández, que está conectada en esta reunión, se acercó a mí y compartió conmigo que tenía el deseo de que se abriera un nuevo capítulo estudiantil en el Departamento de Comunicaciones de la Universidad Interamericana de Puerto Rico, recinto de Bayamón. Muy fast forward, hace varias semanas, cuando celebramos la jornada de entrenamientos de la asociación en Puerto Rico, David, Peña y yo tuvimos la oportunidad de visitar varias universidades y capítulos estudiantiles, y también visitamos la Universidad Interamericana en Bayamón. Allí nos reunimos con la profesora Ruth Hernández, también con Yanira Nieves, que es parte del equipo del Departamento de Comunicaciones y que nos acompaña también en esta reunión, y otros líderes administrativos, y discutimos ya de lleno sobre la creación de este nuevo capítulo. De inmediato el equipo del Departamento de Comunicaciones comenzó a trabajar en el proceso de recopilación de documentos y reunión con los estudiantes para conformar ese capítulo. Y tan reciente como el jueves, identificaron ya a los estudiantes que van a conformar la nueva junta directiva del capítulo de estudiantes de la Universidad Interamericana de Puerto Rico, recinto de Bayamón. Presentaron la documentación requerida y yo estoy muy feliz y orgulloso de endosar esa petición. Así que quería formalmente presentar una moción ante ustedes para que se cree de manera oficial el capítulo de estudiantes del Departamento de Comunicaciones de la Universidad Interamericana de Puerto Rico, recinto de Bayamón.
Gracias, David. Do we have a second on David's motion?
Second.
Arelis, was that you? Okay. All right, does anyone have any questions? So we've got, we can vote on this one separately, and then we'll do the professional chapters after that. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, just to be sure, do those documents will already email to Leslie Ann Frank, to the Next Generation Initiatives Director?
Janet have all the documents. She's already in direct communication with Leslie Ann about the document process. But yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Y añado que el requisito es de 10 estudiantes miembros. Ya el capítulo tiene 15 miembros que forman parte ya de la asociación, y que una vez se ha creado el capítulo en sistema, pues van a tener la oportunidad de moverse a su capítulo.
Felicidades, David. That's so great. I mean, it's a huge moment to go from like no activity to all this activity. So we're really proud of everything that's happening there. All right, so I think we can do instead of a roll call, just a regular vote. So all those in favor of approving the student chapter for the Universidad Interamericana, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. So motion passes. And then do I have a motion to approve? This is the professional chapters, reactivating our Charlotte chapter, and then approving our Tampa as a new chapter.
I move.
Second.
All right, so I got Blanca moved, and who was the second?
Arelis.
Arelis. All right. Any discussions or questions on that? Okay. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Anyone opposed? All right. Any abstentions? All right. So the motion passes. Great. 3 new chapters. All right. I also have, does anyone else have a new business item? Because I have one, and but I can wait if anyone else has a new business item. No.
Just to hear about the process of the committees taking minutes for their incoming meetings. Like, will we have a specific process to follow? Do we have to email that to a specific person? Do we have to approve that as a board? I think we need to discuss that process. I don't know. Because we have done that before.
Well, the secretary, if you look at the bylaws,
Mhm.
I just happen to have this here. This is such a coincidence. The association minutes, the secretary shall keep or cause to be kept at the principal office of the association permanent records of minutes of all the meetings and actions of the members of the association and of the board directors and the committees thereof. Like at the task
Does
force.
that mean I have to go to every single committee meeting?
No. Each of the committees has to take their own minutes. The committees have to take their own minutes. So yeah, so we can, I think we need to formalize that and then communicate that to the members, and we will post that on that page, on the board page where we list the committee meetings. But yes, we will follow whatever the bylaws require.
I think that goes back to us having a place where everything is archived. So that should be like the minutes, you know.
Well, here's the thing, just so that each one of you as board members have access to a Google Drive, in which case for your respective committees, you can make a folder for your committees and just store everything in there. And upon request, you can provide it to anyone that you need to provide it to. And then at the end of that committee's work or in between, that can be something that can be stored in one giant folder. But I think the fact that the Google Drive exists and that we are already in compliance with those bylaws.
We do that at the task force. We have minutes for everything. That's why for me it was so easy to write a report. When Nora asked me to write a report, it was super easy because we had, documented everything for the past year.
So I think that we could just write something there, again, just reminding all of you that whatever committees that you're on, that we encourage each one of you to assign someone to take notes at every meeting, to make folders within your respective Google Drives and to store all that information there, including any meetings that you should so choose to record for whatever reason. And we can deliver that protocol event through email. But seriously, it doesn't have to be hard. The Google Drive already exists for you guys.
Yeah, maybe we can just give access to Blanca and to Yvette so they can have evidence of the minutes.
Yeah, okay. All right, so under new business, the last item I have is a little bit of sad news. Jennifer Marcialo Ocasio gave me her resignation letter last night. She has to step down from the board because she just took a new job outside of journalism. And as you all know, she's been such a crucial member of our strategic planning team. It's a huge loss for us, but I'm excited for her as she moves on to this next chapter. She's not here with us today, but she is going to help with the process of finding a replacement. And the process is we have to appoint someone to replace her. The board does. And so I want to open up and let our members know that this position is going to be open. I'm looking for candidates. I will be vetting the candidates, presenting them to the board so that we can then select and appoint someone to replace her to finish out her term, which is going to be almost a full term. So I want to move forward quickly on this process. It's really important that we have someone representing our Spanish language members. So I'm going to set a deadline of September 24th to receive candidates who would be interested in serving in this position. What I need from every candidate is a resume and a statement of intent as to why they want to serve. And we will share this on social media. We will share this via email so that our members know as well. And then once I have those candidates in place, I will be vetting them, talking to them, and then presenting to the board three finalists. So does anyone have any questions about that process?
Are we gonna send any, I know we're gonna be doing the social media, but are we sending anything like a newsletter or something to our members to let them know that they can?
Yes, yeah, we can let them know. I think that's one of the primary ways that we can ensure that every member gets that.
Thank you.
And just in Jennifer's case, it's open really to anybody in any of the regions, right?
Yes, this is for the
Okay.
whole,
Yeah.
anywhere in the country, as long as they work in Spanish language media.
Okay.
Okay. Lastly, as I mentioned, our next board meeting is not till, our regular quarterly meeting is not till November. And so that's coming up, just so we let our members know, the board knows this. Our next regular board meeting is going to be on the 5th of November is when we have it scheduled at the same time, 9 a.m. Pacific. We also have a retreat coming up for the board coming up in December. We don't have any details on that yet, but we will share those when that's available. And I do want to open it up right now to, are there any members that are still on the call that would have any questions of us? Just open it up for the regular members to ask questions of the board. And if you do, raise your hand, or you can also put your question in the chat box.
There was someone this morning that had a question.
Yeah, I love.
I think I got an email from him. I can't remember the issue. Okay. I don't see him on there.
Mary has a question.
Did you say you have a question, McNally?
Oh, Marilyn, I think she's raising her hand. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I just have a question. I would
Yes.
like the board to consider having some kind of town hall, to inform members, not take questions and stuff like that. I don't think it needs to be done right away or whatever, but I would like the board to consider something like that, where we sort of put ourselves out there for the board. Because I mean, we had a really good showing this morning on the number of members, but we lost some, when we went to executive session. And I just would like to figure a way to get more members to ask us questions and stuff like that. So it's just something to throw out there to consider as we move along and get stuff done.
Yes, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I just realized something. And this might be a good session to have, like for like either a town hall or just membership Q&A. There is one more item from executive session that we had on the agenda, the Latino Journalist Action Fund. And so we do actually need to take a vote on that. David, if you can just give a quick summary of what we're hoping that you will explore. But that is something that if we vote to explore that I would want to keep the members informed of, and maybe like a Q&A town hall might be good for that.
Okay.
David, can you just give a quick summary of that, and then we can call for a motion on that.
Yes, thank you. So part of what we are looking into, and I've asked for a vote and permission for the board to look into, is one of the things that our attorney highlighted during sort of the legal overview of our organization and documents was how advocacy sort of as an organization, because we are a 501c3, we're not a trade association, which is a C6, how we conduct advocacy or the issues that we engage in may be in sort of that gray area. And in order for us to fully comply with being a 501c3 charitable educational association is that we look into creating a sort of a political action fund, but for us, it would be sort of a Latino journalist action fund to be able to engage in support of legislation, which in some states at federal level is moving through, but also give Latino journalists the opportunity to voice support for issues that are being discussed, whether at state legislatures or at the federal level, and be able to possibly like create scorecards on how politicians support freedom of the press, protections, and issues like those. And so the attorney that we were working with, Molly Cullinane out of Austin, she specializes in nonprofits and foundations. And so she recommended that for us to look into and create an action fund. And so I've asked the board with today's motion to approve us looking into what parameters, what is needed, what the benefits and the value to us as an organization. And so that is really today's issue, is the authority to look into, then come back to the board with a formal proposal with the value, the benefits of creating such a fund. It would entail how political action funds work. Usually there is a separate board that is still comprised of several board members that are of the current board. The executive director would work with both organizations, but funding is separate, and how those funds are expensed is separate, and what events and fundraising and how the action fund engages. So today I'm just asking for the authority to look into the viability, the requirements, and how we can begin a process if that's so the board chooses to select that process in November.
Does anyone have any questions? All right. So do we have a motion to approve an exploratory actually an exploratory, I don't know what to call it.
Exploratory process?
Yes, exploratory process for the Latino Journalist Action Fund, which is not the official name, it's just the temporary name that we're giving it.
So move.
That's
Second.
McNally. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, I think I got at least
Or
one.
David.
Seconded, David.
Yeah, let's just give it to David. Both of them did it. All right, any more questions? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so motion passes. All right, that's our final item. Thank you, everyone. I know it's been a long 4 hours. Really appreciate you sticking through this process. If any of the members have any questions, just reach out to us. But thank you. And with that, I will close this meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Happy to see you all.
Bye.